Hello everyone. Today we will have a discussion on chapter When People Rebel. It is a 8th standard history chapter. In this chapter we are going to learn what is the rebellion of 1857 and what are its after effect. See, Britishers came to India as traders, right? Britishers came to India as traders. Gradually, they started to conquer our regions. By 1757, two major battles or war happened. What are those? Battle of Plassey. Another one is Battle of Buxar. See, these are two important wars that occurred in our Indian history. These two wars led to development of British Empire in our India. They won both these wars and they started gradually capturing all our Indian regions one by one. See, in our lives we need freedom, right? We need freedom to lead a decent life. All of us need freedom to lead a decent life in the way we want, right? That's why we need freedom. But when Britishers conquered our country, they started to impose various laws and various restrictions on us. Then people resented against these laws. They rebelled or revolted. In this chapter, we are going to learn about what are the reasons which led to this rebellion. This is the first topic. Second is how the rebellion went on, how it went on. Third is what are the aftermath of this rebellion. This is India map during 1767 after the Battle of Buxar and Battle of Plassey. See, some of these regions, these blue color regions are the areas where they started to rule us. Only this part, Bihar, Bengal, these were the small areas they started to capture and they started to rule our India. Gradually, by the time 1805, they started conquering all these areas. Look at these blue areas. This is the regions where Britishers started their empires. By 1858, most of the India were captured by the Britishers. See, you can see the blue area went on increasing in this direction, right? During 1767, there were very small areas, but by the end of the 1858, most of the regions in India got conquered by the Britishers. Here they have given that policies of the East India Company. This is the company which started to rule on behalf of British Empire, right? They came as traders, but they started to conquer and rule over us. And their rule affected different kinds of people in our society. Kings, queens, peasants, landlords, tribals, soldiers, all these people got affected by the rule of the British Empire in different ways. Now let us see the reasons one by one which led to the rebellion of 1857. This is also called as sepoy mutiny. This rebellion is also called as sepoy mutiny of 1857. Nawabs lose their power. Who are Nawabs? See, Nawabs are the rulers of small regions in our country in those days. See, these are the Nawabs. See, this whole part of the India used to be under the control of a big king. Under this king, these used to rule. These Nawabs used to rule small areas like this. See, this is the Rajputana region, this is Bengal region, Mysore region, this is Madras, like this. These are the small areas which used to be ruled by these Nawabs. See, since mid 18th century, that means after 1750, Nawabs and Rajas, they saw their power eroded, their powers were eroded gradually. They also lost their authority and honor, which were used to be earlier in those days. Residents were stationed. Who are these residents? Andre, these are British officials, which were stationed in local courts. Freedom of the rulers also reduced gradually. Their armed forces were disbanded. Gradually, these local Nawabs lost their army also. Revenues were the source of income for them, right? They also taken away later. Let us see some of the examples in which local leaders got affected. See, Rani Lakshmi Bai was a ruler or a queen of Jhansi region. What she wanted was, she wanted the company to recognize her adopted son as their heir to the kingdom after the death of her husband. Her husband died in a battle. What she requested to the company, which company? East India Company, to accept her adopted son as the next king to the kingdom after the death of her husband. But East India Company refused. East India Company refused her request. Another example is Nana Sahib. He was also an adopted son of Peshwa Bajirao, was the ruler of Maratha kingdom. Maratha, today's Maharashtra region, is used to be called as Maratha kingdom earlier. He died. After his death, his adopted son Nana Sahib requested to give his father's pension amount, but they refused this request also. This kind of behavior from the East India Company made the local leaders or Nawabs become angry. That is why leaders revolted against the East India Company later. Awadh region was also annexed, means this region also captured by the British East India Company. In 1801, a subsidiary alliance was imposed on the Awadh. Now, let us learn what is this subsidiary alliance. See, if any local ruler, if he accepted the alliance, means British will help this local leader whenever a opposite team comes and wages a war against him, means British will help him, but in return he has to keep British army officers in his court and he shouldn't take any decision on his own. He has to take decisions from the British East India Company. So, this is all about subsidiary alliance. See, in 1856, this Awadh was taken over. See, this year is very important, and also you try to remember the Governor General name also. Here, Governor General was Dalhousie. The reason given by the Dalhousie to capture this region was, this place was misgoverned by the local leader, and British rule was to ensure the proper administration of the region. This was the reason given by the Dalhousie to capture this place. Company even began to plan how to bring down the Mughal dynasty to an end. They also planned to bring down this Mughal dynasty. This is one of the largest dynasty that ruled our country. Name of the Mughal king was removed from the coins minted by the company. These are the steps taken by the East India Company to reduce or to bring down this Mughal dynasty to an end. What they did was, name of the Mughal king, which earlier used to be minted on the coins, later taken down or removed from the East India Company. In 1849, Governor General Dalhousie announced after the death of Bahadur Shah Zafar, he was a ruler of Mughal dynasty. Family of the king would be shifted to another place out of Red Fort. Red Fort was the palace for this Mughal dynasty. In 1856, another governor, who is a Canning, Governor General Lord Canning, he decided that Bahadur Shah Zafar would be the last Mughal king. See, by 1856, they openly announced that Bahadur Shah Zafar would be the last Mughal king, and after his death, none would be recognized as the kings. They would be just called as princes. There will be no more kings for India. Kings ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನ ಕಂಪ್ಲೀಟ್ ಆಗಿ ತೆಗೆದುಬಿಟ್ಟು only princes names will be given for them. This was the resentment by the Nawabs or rulers of the country. What are the reasons for these peasants and sepoys mutinies ಅಂತಂದರೆ, see, in countryside, peasants and zamindars also resented the high taxes and new rigid methods of the revenue collection. East India Company started to collect high amount of taxes, and also they used to have very rigid revenue collection system. If some people or if some farmers, if they fail to give any taxes which was imposed by these East India Company antandre, they used to take over their lands or they confiscated their farmers' land. Many failed to pay back their loans and gradually lost their lands. Their only source of income were lost by them. Indian sepoys also were unhappy about their pay, allowances and conditions of services. These Indian army officers or sepoys were also very unhappy about their pay. They were given very less wages. Conditions of these poor farmers, if they failed to pay their high taxes which was imposed by the East India Company, they lost their lands. Here you can see peasants later rebelled against British East India Company. Here you can see in this picture British army officer, whereas this Indian army officer, their pay, their salary was very low and their condition of services also very poor. Here in this picture you can see this British army officer wearing a very solid good looking uniform, and also he wore a good pair of shoes, whereas our Indian soldier sepoy worn a very bad cloth, and here you can see he doesn't have any shoes to wear. Now let us see some of the rules which made them angry. See, some new rules brought by the East India Company violated the religious beliefs and sensibilities of the Indian sepoys or peasants or in local society. See, in those days, if some people, if they cross the sea, means they would lose their religion or caste. This was the belief which used to be there in our Indian society. If they cross the sea, means they would lose their religion and caste. So when in 1824 sepoys were told to go to Burma to fight for the company, they were told to cross the sea and go to Burma by sea route. But these sepoys believed that it violated their religious beliefs. They agreed to go by the land route. So when they refused, they were severely punished by the British East India Company. Those sepoys who refused to go by the sea were severely punished by the East India Company. See, these were some of the things done by the East India Company which angered the society. And when in 1856 company passed a new law so that every new person who takes the employment in the army should work anywhere that means overseas also if required. Responses to the reforms. See, these Britishers believed that Indian society had to be reformed. They thought that our Indian society is very backward looking. So, they started to implement new laws. See, laws were passed to stop the practice of sati. What is this sati system means? If a husband dies, means her widow wife has to jump into fire. See, in this picture you can see practice of sati system. Sati system was there earlier. If a man dies, his wife has to sit on the pile of fire and she was burnt alive. This was sati system. They banned this system. See, even though we don't like the British rule in our country, but they brought few changes that changed our society. They brought very good changes in our society. They banned this inhuman practice of sati. They also encouraged remarriage of the widows. English language education was actively promoted. This was also another important law made by the British. What was it? English language education was actively promoted in those days. After 1830, company allowed Christian missionaries. These were the organization which used to spread Christian religion. They started to convert non-Christians into Christian community. In 1850, a new law was passed to make conversion to Christianity very easier. Many Indians began to feel that these Britishers were destroying their religion, their social customs and their traditional way of life. These are the reasons which led to the rebellion of 1857. Now let us look at the topic of how this mutiny became so much popular rebellion. See, people rise up against the enemy at the same time. This is known as rebellion. In the northern parts of the country, in 1857, after 100 years of the conquest and administration by the East India Company, that means, see, East India Company came to India in 1600 and they started to conquer some regions from 1757 onwards. Which were those two battles which led to conquer of the Indian regions andre Battle of Buxar and Battle of Plassey. After ruling over 100 English years, East India Company faced a massive rebellion which started in May 1857. This year is very important. This is the year in which sepoy mutiny happened. Sepoy's mutiny. See, what is the term mutiny means? When soldiers as a group disobey their officers in the army. Group of soldiers, Indian soldiers, they disobey. Beginning from the Meerut. Meerut is a place. Okay. People from different section of the society also rose up in this rebellion. From Meerut to Delhi. On 8th April 1857, a young soldier Mangal Pandey, he was hanged for attacking his officers. Barakpur is a place where Mangal Pandey used to work as a soldier. You can see Mangal Pandey was hanged for disobeying or for attacking his army officer. See, another main reason for this rebellion was some sepoys of the regiment at the Meerut refused to do the army drill using new cartridge. What is this cartridge? See, this is the cartridge. Before loading this bullet or gunpowder into this gun, they have to chew and tear this part of the cartridge. There were rumors that this cartridge end was coated with the skin of pigs and cows. But these cows are holy or worshipped by the Hindu community, right? That is why these sepoys refuse to use that. In this picture you can see, before filling the gun with this cartridge, they have to bite this cartridge, then they have to load the gunpowder and bullet here. Then they used to fire the gun. This is the main reason for the mutiny. Around 85 sepoys were dismissed from the service and they were sentenced to 10 years jail for disobeying their officers. This happened in 9th May 1857. On 10th May, these soldiers marched to the jail in Meerut and they have released the imprisoned. Those who were in jail were released by these sepoys. They later attacked and killed the British officers. They also captured the guns and ammunitions and set those buildings for fire. Later, they declared war on Firangis. All these sepoys, they declared war on Firangis. See, Firangi was the term used to represent British officers. Firangis means foreigners. Sepoys of Meerut, then they reached Delhi. Regiments stationed in the Delhi also rose up in the rebellion. Those who were there in Delhi also joined this Meerut batch. They later went to Bahadur Shah Zafar and they declared Bahadur Shah Zafar as their leader. This is very, very important. They might ask you in MCQ type of question. Sepoys declared Bahadur Shah Zafar as their leader, main leader. Aging emperor, who this Bahadur Shah Zafar was already a 75-year-old king. This aging emperor had to accept this demand. He wrote letters to all the chiefs and rulers of the country to come forward and organize a confederacy of Indian state to fight the British. He gave permissions and orders for other rulers to come and unite with the to fight British Empire. How this rebellion spread was, after the British were routed from the Delhi, regiment after regiment joined this mutiny. The regiments of Delhi, Kanpur, Lucknow, all of them joined this mutiny. Nana Sahib, the adopted son of late Peshwa Bajirao. I have told you this earlier. Nana Sahib, who is the adopted son of Peshwa Bajirao II, who lived near Kanpur, gathered some small army. They also resented against the British Empire. See, in all these paragraphs, what you need to learn is who is the leader, in which region they were from. You need to remember these 2 points. In Lucknow, Birjis Qadar, son of deposed Nawab Wajid Ali Shah, was proclaimed as the new Nawab. See, Birjis Qadar, he was a ruler in Lucknow. You need to remember name of the leader and region which they came from. They might ask you in match the following type of questions. His mother, who Begum Hazrat Mahal. You have to remember this name also. These both names are from Lucknow region. In Jhansi, Rani Lakshmi Bai, along with Tantya Tope, general of Nana Sahib. Tantya Tope was the general of Nana Sahib. He helped Rani Lakshmi Bai later. In Mandla region of Madhya Pradesh, Rani Avanti Bai Lodi of Ramgarh rised. British were greatly outnumbered by the rebel forces. Many new leaders like, for example, Ahmadullah Shah of a Maulvi from Faizabad. He came to Lucknow to fight British. Bakht Khan, a soldier from Bareilly, took charge. He became a key military leader of the rebellion. In which region? Delhi. In Bihar, old Zamindar Kunwar Singh. You have to remember all their names and regions in which they fought. Company fights back. See, company decided to repress the revolt with all its might. It brought reinforcements from the England. It passed new laws, moved into storm centers of the revolt. Delhi was recaptured in September 1857. Last Mughal king, who was Bahadur Shah Zafar, was tried in the court and he was sentenced to the life imprisonment. He was sent to Rangoon. He and his wife Begum Zinat Mahal were sent to prison in Rangoon in October 1858, and Zafar died in Rangoon jail in November 1862. But people continued to fight the British. Lucknow was taken in March 1858. Rani Lakshmi Bai was defeated and killed in June 1858. Tantia Tope escaped to the jungles and continued the fight using guerrilla war. He was captured later. He was tried and killed in April 59. Now let us look at the what happened after the war has come down or it was suppressed by the British. See, they have regained control by the end of 1859. They have brought some important changes in Indian society. Important changes which were introduced by the British Parliament passed a new act in 1858 and transferred the powers of the East India Company to the British Crown. See, earlier East India Company used to rule over the regions of the India. Later British Parliament passed a new law or new act in 1858. This act gave complete power or authority over India to the British Crown instead of East India Company. A member of the British Cabinet was appointed as the Secretary of the State for India. This is a very important position. He was a member of British Cabinet. This British Cabinet member was appointed as the Secretary of the State for India, and this position member was made responsible for all matters related to the governance of India. He was given a council of members to advise him. That council was called as Indian Council. Viceroy was the name given to Governor General of India. He was a personal representative of the Crown. Through these measures, through these acts, British government accepted the directed responsibility. They might ask you, in which year British government accepted the direct responsibility of the India antandre? In 1858. See, all ruling chiefs were assured of their territory, and they also assured that they never be annexed in future. They were allowed to pass on their kingdom to their heirs, including the adopted son also. These were the some freedom given to local leaders. However, they have to acknowledge the British Queen as the sovereign power. Proportion of the Indian soldiers in the army was reduced. Number of the European soldiers were increased in the later part. Instead of recruiting the soldiers from the Awadh, Bihar, Central India and South India, more soldiers were recruited from among the Gurkhas, Sikhs and Pathans. See, in these reasons actually rebellion happened. That is the reason why the sepoys from these regions were reduced, whereas Gurkhas, Sikhs and these Pathan members were increased in the army people. Land and property of the Muslims were confiscated and they were treated with suspicion and hostility. Why? They thought that Muslims are majorly responsible for this rebellion. Respect of the customary religious and social practices was also done. To protect landlords and zamindars, their security of rights over their lands were given to them. So, these are the new changes or change made by the British Crown to regain the faith in the Indian society. In this way, Britishers have suppressed the revolt and gained their faith in Indian society. This is the end of this chapter. Please comment down if you need any other chapters to be covered in future videos. Thank you and subscribe to our channel.